Well, hello there, children. Yeah, we're back. We finally decided to do another one. This is the GlacierTV F1/WCS/preview show thing here on GlacierTV and on YouTube. I wish it was presented by Starbucks, however, it's not. Hi, Starbucks. Give us some sponsorship. It'll be awesome. Well, Vincent, along with Scott Woodwiss, we're going to talk a little bit about what is happening in the world, the wacky world of Formula One, as well as the World Championship Grand Prix Series as well. And Scott, there's really only one place to start. Kimi Räikkönen, he's over to Ferrari.
He is indeed. Good afternoon, everybody. And that has been the main story, of course, dominating the headlines in Formula One recently. And it is one of the interesting situations that, of course, Kimi going back to Ferrari, it's like he's going to be alongside Fernando Alonso. And I think it's fair to say that we need to get the popcorn out of this one, because this could go one of two ways. It can either go spectacular, or it can go spectacularly wrong. Because, of course, you know, Alonso's used to being a number one. Alonso's used to having a team built around him. He had it with Renault when he won the championships in 2005 and 2006, and effectively he's got a teammate which has actually been a championship rival of his twice in 2005 and 2007, and of course, effectively, Kimi's going back to Ferrari, and it's now Alonso's team. And I think this is arguable because when Kimi was Kimi was at Ferrari, I don't think it ever was Kimi's team. I think there was kind of a balance in some ways between it being between Kimi and Massa. I think they had equal footing in some cases, even though Kimi won the World Championship. So I think it's definitely an intriguing prospect, and a lot of people who are fans of Kimi are excited to see him go back to Ferrari. But I'm intrigued to see how Alonso feels about it. I think on the outset, I think from a media point of view, he's been told to kind of smile and say, yeah, it's fine, I'm happy to see Kimi back. But I think inside, I think he's kind of secretly kind of like just boiling away inside, because I'm not sure he really enjoys the fact that he's got a driver who's practically on equal footing in a team which he's effectively made his own. Well,
a couple of points I think we need to touch on first. The first one is the fact that Kimi has left Lotus, and kind of unceremonial the way he did it. He started complaining literally that Lotus hadn't been paying him money, which isn't the sort of thing that you want to do while you're still contracted to a team. Of course, Lotus pretty much are out of the running now for the 2013 Formula One World Championship, and Kimi Räikkönen's run of, what was it, something like 30 races in a row, scoring points, that's come to an end as well. But for Kimi, it did seem as though all of a sudden he kind of fell out of favour of Lotus. And you look at the end of last year, the beginning of this year, he was really happy in that team. And then something kind of just changed quickly. Of course, he was in the running for that Red Bull seat. How serious it was him being in the running for that Red Bull seat, I'm not quite sure. But possibly it might have been as soon as Kimi thought, oh, there's a chance I could leave Lotus, he might have just got that idea into his head, and after the Red Bull seat fell, he's probably thinking, well, you know, I don't really want to be at Red Bull anymore, at Lotus even anymore, so maybe I should, you know, just try find other drive to do.
Yeah, quite possibly. Fantastic Kimi impression, by the way. Well, that was brilliant. Yeah, I think in many ways, I think that Kimi doesn't really care where he goes as long as he's got a car that he can challenge for the World Championship. Obviously, I think it was probably disappointing for him that he couldn't get the Red Bull seat. But then again, he would have been alongside another driver who's had a team built around him in Sebastian Vettel. So, whichever way you look at it, Kimi was going to face some adversity from his teammate in many ways, because, of course, in both the case of Ferrari and Red Bull, they're both built around drivers who won the World Championship multiple times. Alonso's won it twice, Vettel's won it 3 times, and on course for another one this season. So I think that Kimi in some cases, I think he would have probably gone, obviously with the situation that's going on with Lotus, he would have gone where the money is. And I think obviously he's gone to Ferrari because obviously that's where the biggest paycheck is, of course, and you know, and probably the best place where he can get all these. He probably got fed up of Magnums and decided to go for, you know, some proper Italian ice cream again instead. So he's gone for that. But unfortunately, that is the way the world of Formula One works. You know, money does make the world of Formula One go round, and it has done for several decades. So I think Kimi's probably made the right choice in his own mind, because he's going back to a team he knows. He's going back to a team that, of course, he's won the World Championship with. He spent 3 seasons with them before he left. So it's not as if he's going into this one that he's going into the unknown, leaving Lotus. He'll know. I thought most of the personnel going there. Of course, he'd be reunited with James Allison, of course, who was who is, of course, he's worked with at Lotus before, and but also heard rumours that possibly Kimi's current race engineer is going to be moving over to Lotus with him. So I think we'll see, because obviously there's the rumours going around that Rob Smedley is going to Williams, which obviously leaves speculation of where this leaves Massa, who I'm sure we'll touch on in a second. But yeah, obviously at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure, like Kimi said, we just need to leave him alone, because I'm pretty sure he knows what he's doing.
Yes. I know what I'm doing. I'm guessing, but I think we've all been paying that attention to Kimi Räikkönen, and of course you could say that he deserves more championship crowns than he's had in his Formula One career. You could say, I still remember that first race that he did in 2001 in that Sauber at Australia. Stonkingly good performance. And he's been good all the way through his career. In many ways, I always put him into that kind of same category as Jenson Button, that he's kind of always been at the wrong team at the wrong time. But you've talked about the flip side of that already, Fernando Alonso, and rumours circulating in the press that McLaren's been trying to poach him back to the team to maybe, go and drive alongside Jenson Button. But I'll get to that point in a minute. There's one important thing. Fernando Alonso has eaten up every teammate he has had in front of him. And I think the most famous one of these is Giancarlo Fisichella. Now, Fisi was an amazingly good driver. He used to dominate his teammates all the way through his career. Back when he was at Jordan, back when he was at Benetton, and then it became Renault. He basically, blew a hole in Jenson Button's career for a couple of years. And then you had Fernando Alonso come along. All of a sudden, Fisichella fell out of favour with Flavio Briatore. Everything there happened. There is a good chance that Fernando Alonso could destroy what's left of Raikkonen's career. But at the same time, Alonso doesn't seem to be that happy now, does he?
Well, I think the simple fact of the matter is he's been at Ferrari now. This is his 4th season. He still hasn't won a world championship with him. I think that was of course the aim, the idea of him going to Ferrari. Of course, the dream of driving for Maranello and driving a Scarlet Ferrari and trying to win the world championship. And he's done one part of that, which is race for Ferrari, and he's won race victories. He's taken pole positions, but he just hasn't got that world title. And he's come close in 2010. He came close in 2012. And both times he's had the title slip away from him in the last couple of races, and it's mainly been due to, obviously 2010 it was due to a poor pit call which saw him stuck behind Petrov the whole time in Abu Dhabi, which got him out of position and lost him the points he needed. And then 2012 they started off the season with a really poor car. It's fair to say it wasn't one of the best looking cars with the step noses, let's be honest, with a very wedge kind of almost like square nose that they had on that car.
That car is probably one of the ugliest Ferraris we've seen in history. Not since probably the late 1980s when they were designing that car made out of Lego bricks and had a 4-year-old design it. Have I seen a Ferrari that ugly?
Absolutely, I have to agree. I genuinely have to agree with you on that one. It wasn't a pretty thing, but thankfully most of the step noses have gone this season. But and obviously then moving forwards, but somehow they made that car good, and somehow Alonso mostly be a title contender and the only one that could really challenge Sebastian Vettel for that championship. And then again, just in the last race, couldn't make it happen, and somehow Sebastian's superhuman Vettel comes through from a first lap collision, which ironically Kimi Räikkönen almost avoided. If you remember that in the first lap, he had to dart out of the way and take the escape runoff to try and make sure he didn't hit anyone before Vettel was actually hit and spun round. And obviously when he came through and got the points he needed, and the race finished under the safety car, and he was a 3-time world champion again. So and there was that look. You see, there's I think one of the lasting camera shots from 2012. Did you see that look where the camera's focused on Alonso? You kind of looking into the distance, looking at Vettel celebrating, and thinking, I'm not going to let this happen again, because obviously it's 3 seasons now where he's been at Ferrari, 3 seasons where he's failed to win the Drivers' Championship. And I think I wouldn't blame him. If you've gone to Ferrari with the purpose to win the championship, you would expect Ferrari to deliver the best car in order to give Fernando what he wants. And I think they're falling into that trap again, where it's something that Top Gear said, where effectively because of course I think it's to do with their road car division, because if you think about it, it seems to be that they can't put focus on both at the same time, because whenever Ferrari make great road cars, their F1 team suffers, and vice versa. So it was like, basically, if you think about it, back in like the late 80s, early 90s, but late 80s or so, when the F1 team was winning with Alain Prost and Nigel Mansell and what have you, their road cars were good because you had cars such as the Ferrari F40 and then the Ferrari F355 came out and such, but their F1 team was terrible. Then when they started moving to cars such as obviously when the Schumacher came in and the dominant Schumacher era through from like, I don't know, 2000 to 2004, they made fantastic F1 cars, but their road cars were quite dreary. Now you've gone back to where they're concentrating more on their road car effects. You've got like the 458, you've got like the FF, the F12 coming through, the LaFerrari also as well. Brilliant road cars. But I think that there's a result, because they're focusing a lot on their production cars and their supercars and such, their F1 team's suffering again as a result. And they're bringing all these technical stuff like James Allison and Pat Fry and all these guys. But I don't know. It seems to be that Ferrari are getting caught up in the fact that, and I think McLaren are suffering the same thing. I honestly think that with the focus on their MP4-12 seeing the P1, I think in some ways it's suffering on their F1 team, I think. So I think it's the case where manufacturer teams like that can't focus on both things at the same time, because one thing seems to take priority over the other. I think in both cases for them, I think it's their road cars, if I'm honest.
You made a point there about the dominant Schumacher era, but let's not forget, Schumacher was at Ferrari for 4 years and didn't win a championship. Of course, 96, that car was an absolute dog to drive. Looks pretty in some ways, looked ugly in some ways, was horrible to drive. Of course, you had that famous win at Spain in 96, and fast forward to Monza, and that's pretty much, Ferrari's 96 season. 97, you had that potential charge for the championship, which ended up with Schumacher deciding he wanted to play an instant replay from 94. 98, McLaren's were just dominant, and then 99, he decided that he wanted to have a brake failure going into Stowe Corner, and Eddie Irvine at the same time decided that he was in love with one of his chassis so much that even when it started flexing, he didn't want to, give it up and get a new chassis. In my opinion, Irvine lost that championship. Ferrari didn't lose it because Irvine was just an arrogant son of a bitch. But I think one of the things with Alonso compared to Schumacher is that Schumacher was there for the long game. He was there ready to stick it out, and he got frustrated, but he motivated that team, and I'm not quite sure if Alonso fully motivates Ferrari or whether it's Ferrari who motivate Alonso.
I think it's weird. I don't think there's a lack of motivation for Alonso. I think obviously you would have thought with being, as we said, being in the team for like three or four years now, not winning a championship, of course, that it can kind of dent the motivation on a guy. Of course, if you've gone in there thinking, right, he's gone into Ferrari, they're giving him the first race that Alonso ran with Ferrari, Bahrain 2010, won it. But only due because of that the Vettel's engine started developing a loss of power and started getting an engine problem. So that was really the only problem that one of the only ways in which he was able to win that race. But still, he won for Ferrari in his debut. I think the first man to do that since Nigel Mansell in 1989, at the Brazilian Grand Prix at Jacarapagua. So, and I think obviously that gave Alonso a lot of confidence. I think the 2010 Ferrari wasn't a bad car. Obviously, the fact that Alonso was in the hunt for the championship justifies that. 2011, it was intriguing, but again, for some reason, Alonso didn't really get himself into the title hunt that much. 2012, he bounced back somehow, as we said, with the bad car. But I think, obviously, there's only so many times you can go through after one season saying, right, we didn't win the World Championship, we're going to do it again this year, and then you don't. There's only so many times that's going to work by saying, right, we didn't get this year, but it will happen next year. Because, of course, Ferrari made him all these promises that saying, yes, we're going to, we make you a brilliant car, and we're going to win you a championship and give you everything you want. And it's like, there's only so much that a man can take from that, where effectively he's saying, well, come on, it's fourth season, and you still haven't given me a world championship winning car. I mean, what the hell's going on? So, I'm not sure. Also, just a quick note on that, I did hear on the rumours, of course, Alonso had interest from McLaren to go back. I did actually hear that Alonso has in fact, he said that he's flattered by the interest, but he's not interested at all. So effectively, that kind of says that he is probably still going to stay at Ferrari.
Either that or McLaren just haven't given him enough money. Let's be honest.
But quite possibly.
And that's actually an interesting point about McLaren, because of course they're losing some of their biggest sponsorship with Vodafone at the end of the year. Vodafone, of course, if you're in America, that'll be Verizon sponsorship. I always get confused when I go to America and all of a sudden it's just Verizon on there. But moving slightly on, McLaren, orange cars rumoured for next year. We're going back to the good old days with Brucey and everyone. An orange McLaren would be orgasmic to look at.
Oh, it would. I think that they used to run when they were testing for quite a few years, they used to run the orange testing livery. I think only 2 years I remember they did that. Were
97 before they got West sponsorship.
Yeah. 97, and I think they also did it 2005 or 2006
when they lost West sponsorship.
That's right. So it's kind of ironic they're using they're using the orange paint scheme to kind of curtail getting the West sponsorship and ending it. So I think Vodafone would be a very loyal sponsor. I think obviously they McLaren stole Vodafone from Ferrari, obviously entered 2006, and I think that it's kind of a decent look. Of course, when they originally went to kind of the whole chrome paint job, the whole chrome silver paint job that they went through, they wanted to take it. I actually watched the video on this of the 2006 McLaren launch, and it was intriguing. One of the guys said they wanted to go for a fresh, brand new look. They did some research on what would look good and the kind of colours they were going to do, and they found that apparently there's really this striking chrome silver that they were going to run wasn't something which had ever been done before by any other team. So they thought it'd be a great marketing exercise or marketing strategy to kind of draw attention to their cars, and of course help draw attention to their sponsors by running this chrome paint job. Of course, and we've now become accustomed over the past few years since 2007 of McLaren's being this chrome paint job with the red side pods with Vodafone on the side and the red wings and what have you. Now they're going to a completely different look. And also you've got to remember, of course, they're going to get getting Honda engines. Of course, when we go to the Turbo V6s, back to the Turbo V6s next year, the year after that, 2015, we're going to get, of course, the McLaren Hondas again, which is going to be a really exciting prospect to have that partnership back again and relive the days of Senna and Prost and 1988 and the dominant MP44 and what have you, and all those years when we had the Honda V10, then the Honda V12. So,
can we just go back to the kind of like red and white cars and get KFC to sponsor them?
Could possibly. I've actually got a copy of Autosport in front of me where it was back from July the 18th. And there's a picture on the front of it it was a mock-up that Autosport have done, which is basically what they think. No, it's different. It's on the front saying Honda's F1 plan. It's actually got a mock-up of what Autosport would think a McLaren Honda would look like for 2015. I have to say, looking at it, it has got a very strong whiff of Super Aguri about it, with a kind of the white, with the kind of the whole kind of nose kind of section and the whole front nose section. The car's got predominantly black. It's got the red in it as well. It's predominantly black and red, with the white is mainly on the side pods and the engine cover, what have you, with like red wings and such. So it's very much looks like has that Super Aguri feel to it as what Autosport are predicting. But I think just as long as they make it look good, I don't think it really matters what the colour scheme is. I think either something similar like a red and white, or if they go for the orange McLarens, which I think would be fitting because of course this McLaren celebrating their 50th anniversary this year as a company, as a race team. So I'm surprised that they haven't done an orange paint scheme at some point this season anyway. So I think it'd be a really fitting tribute to Bruce and the team as a whole if they did actually do an orange paint scheme, because I think it really worked.
And on that note of Honda coming back in as well, I felt bad for Honda because they left Formula One when they actually finally had a car that was going to battle with a world championship. But Honda, in my opinion, are the real dark horses of the new engines. Let's not forget, they already make a turbocharged engine. They use it in IndyCar. And they've had some issues with that IndyCar program, that the Chevrolets in IndyCar, have continuously been a little bit faster than the Hondas. But Honda have had amazing fuel economy. And let's not forget, we're talking about engines which have to go 230 miles an hour going down into turn 1 of Indianapolis. So they can deal with stress. IndyCar, of course, have brought in the engine rules so they can deal with, longevity. And Honda know what it takes to make an engine for both ovals and road courses already. Of course, Formula One's a different game. You've got, more gear changes, you've got better acceleration. But Honda have got a good thing here. And I think that if I'm going to tie this back into the original comment, Ferrari and Honda, in my opinion, are going to be the two people to watch come the new engine classifications. And I think Kimi going to Ferrari, I think he secretly got that in the back of his mind, knowing that, Renault might not care that much about what's going on with the new engine regs. And if Lotus have issues with the new engine regs, Red Bull might have issues with the new engine regs. The teams not affected are going to be McLaren and Ferrari. All of a sudden, Kimi's got a half chance of winning the championship.
That's a very good point you make, actually about the, obviously if the Renault engines don't work, of course, it's not only Lotus, as you said, it will be Red Bull affected, of course, but then again, I'm pretty sure that Adrian Newey, of course, is the man that can practically see air flowing over a car, that we'll probably try and find something to try and overhaul the engine, but of course it's quite difficult to try and design an aerodynamic car when you haven't got the engine that can do the business to actually make it go. But the thing is that Mercedes and Renault, both Mercedes and Renault, have been developing their 2014 engines for ages now. As I'm pretty sure probably Ferrari and I'm guessing also Honda will be starting their development, either if they haven't already, very, very soon, I would have thought. But I think what's intriguing is that effectively, I think you make a good point that Honda are going to be a dark horse, but because not only, of course, you said they have got experience turbocharged with, turbocharged race engines recently, because of course they have done IndyCar turbo engines for ages, and it is a V6 as well. But also the fact that really that they get a year to kind of look and see what kind of characteristics this new turbo V6 engine will provide in terms of what kind of acceleration, what it's going to do for braking, traction-wise, what terms of strain it's going to put in parts and stuff like that. Things like rigidity, weight, fuel economy, what kind of heat it produces as well. They're going to be able to take that. And also remember, of course, next year, McLaren still have Mercedes engines, but of course they're bringing Honda on board. So I wouldn't be surprised if one or two Honda engineers just sneak in and just take a quick peek at the engine, just think, oh, we could use that and this and that and the other, and just do that quickly whilst the McLaren mechanics aren't looking. So that's going to be intriguing, of course. So I think really Honda are going to have the biggest advantage. I think McLaren are probably going to know that because everyone else will have. But then again, going into 2015, the disadvantage Honda will have is that everyone, such as of course, I'm not sure what Cosworth are doing with a V6. I don't think they are, but Ferrari and Lotus, of course, and Mercedes will have had a year to actually effectively work on these turbo V6 engines, and they'll know pretty much inside out how they work. Honda will only been looking at it through testing it on a test bed and through theory by seeing what's been going with the other teams and the other engines. So they'll only get an idea of what's gone on from other teams, whereas the other teams, of course, Ferrari, Lotus, and Mercedes, Ferrari, Mercedes and Renault will have valuable data that they can give to the teams to try and improve the engines for 2015. But we have to see exactly what the engine regs will allow in terms of engine development. I'm pretty sure they'll let it because, you can't just make a turbo V6 engine and then if there's any problem with it, just freeze it in for the rest of the season.
Well, yeah, and there's a big difference between what you have in Le Mans, for example, Porsche spending that extra year to get themselves ready when they can test compared to what Honda can do. When really, you're right, they're using wind tunnel simulations and everything else, so they're in a slightly different situation to what Porsche and Le Mans are doing, in that they haven't got the chance to go and run 30,000 miles, on the clock whenever they want to. Just to let you know, by the way, Max Chilton, Jules Bianchi, Van der Garde, Pique, Maldonado, and Di Resta out of qualifying for Singapore. Di Resta is having, how do I say this nicely, a pretty shitty second half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, Di Resta's not a bad driver. Let's put this clear. Di Resta's not a bad driver. He had some really good results earlier on this season. I think his best was P4, I think, in Bahrain. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. But so he's come close. And when the Force City's been working for him and the team haven't been making really poor strategy calls and whatever, and just been plainly unlucky, he has managed to show himself as a genuinely quick driver. And there's a lot of people who've been touting that he should be going to places such as, maybe into the seat at Lotus. They've been touting him at Red Bull or Ferrari, and I think or maybe Mercedes. At one point, he was touted to go to Mercedes as well. So it's not as if Di Resta is a bad driver, because the top teams, there was rumours wouldn't be going around that he's going to that he's linked with these top teams if he was a bad driver, So. And I think that, honestly, obviously Sutil's come back in after a year's absence. I think that, Sutil, of course, has had a year on the sidelines. And he's just trying to fit in. I think in some ways it's worked, but I think it depends. I think because I think Sutil's obviously his performance slightly better, but only because the rest has been a little bit unlucky. But then again, you look at performances like Canada, when Paul Di Resta did some 50-odd laps on one set of tyres in Canada, which is incredible tyre management, especially at a circuit like Canada where you've got fairly high temperatures and the tyre wear is not necessarily the best around there either, despite the fact it's a very stop-start circuit with long straights. And
you got the chance to, flat spot that tyre about 4 times a lap.
Indeed, so I think that Di Resta, deserves not the Force India is a bad car, but I think he deserves a bit more luck and a bit more of a break. I think so, but yeah, it's intriguing. I think to see what's gone wrong with this season. I think purely I think most of it's down to just bad strategy calls from Force India. I think that shows because I think some of their key personnel have kind of obviously gone over the past couple of years to other teams. I think you see that there's a lot of if you want to call it, to use a football or a soccer analogy, if in Will's case, the F1 kind of personnel transfer market's quite in full swing at the moment with different people going to different teams, and I think some of the smaller teams like Sauber and Force India and Lotus, Lotus is not a small team, but obviously they're losing technical staff to people like teams like Ferrari and Mercedes especially, and that shows because if you see all the tech people that Sauber have lost, and it's kind of it kind of does show because they've lost people like James Key and other people like that, and going through to other teams, and if you lose key technical staff, you do feel the impact of that because effectively it's left a void in the team that you can try and fill, but if you've kind of relied on those kind of people setting up the team, then and kind of running the team to the best that they can, it does leave a mark. It does leave something that a hole that needs to be tried and filled.
Don't forget, by the way, you can hit us up on Twitter. Follow me at Will Vincent with 1 L, please, not 2. I don't know what Scott's Twitter is, and I can't be bothered to ask him because he's drinking lemon and green tea.
I don't care. I don't even care what Will thinks. Just for the record, it's at Rapid Scorpion, RAPIDSCORPION. If you want to hit me up on that one with anything at all, and to reinstate, I don't even care what anyone thinks. I'm drinking lemon green tea, and I don't care.
They don't sell that at Starbucks, so if we do get a Starbucks sponsorship, we're going to have to drink spearmint green tea.
Either that, I won't even drink that. I'll probably drink hot chocolate, because I prefer hot chocolate more than green tea, but I don't have any hot chocolate, so I'm just drinking this. I've drunk it before and I like it, and I don't care.
Should we move back to F1? Silly season. You talk about silly season. It really is underway, and you make a good point actually with Di Resta. But overall, the transfer market, it's with personnel. It's not with drivers because there's just not the spaces. I mean, this has probably been the biggest driver change we've had in a long time because you had Rebel leaving, so you had Ricciardo to Red Bull. And then you had, Massa pretty much out of a seat. Now you've got Kimi going to Ferrari. That frees up a Lotus position, which is going to be wide open. There's still rumours over Perez, whether he's going to stay at McLaren. So you've got 2 spots that are available. But in Formula 1, really, you don't see that much driver movement anymore. And this is hurting the drivers like Di Resta, like Sutil. People, in my opinion, even like Maldonado in some ways. People like Hulkenberg, Gutierrez, Verne. And they're all good drivers, but they can't move up the food order a little bit too much, mainly because, you've got 2 drivers who are locked into a Red Bull program, and they're going to go from Red Bull Junior Team to Red Bull Senior Team. It looks like that's the way they're going to do it from now on. Then you've got 6 drivers who are pretty much going to pay their way into Formula 1, adding another driver or so at Williams and or Sauber. So you have to pay to get into Formula 1, and then once you're in Formula 1, the ability to move up the ladder to the likes of the Red Bulls, McLarens, the Ferraris, the Lotuses, a bit tough.
Yeah, it does prove that it's a very cutthroat business that is F1, of course, and it's a shame. In most cases now, you can be as talented as you have the talent of Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel put together, but if you haven't got the money to back it up, then it's kind of like, well, thanks, but no thanks. And that's a shame. It shouldn't be like that. But fortunately, it's turned into a rich kid sport.
And that's not just Formula 1. That's in all forms of motorsports now.
Exactly.
You look in NASCAR, for example, the same thing's happening. IndyCar, the same thing is happening. You have a look over at the new United States Sports Car Series, whatever it's called. Same thing. Same thing in rallying. Same thing in WTCC. Same thing in BTCC.
Yeah, as I said earlier on, money definitely makes the world go round in terms of motorsport. So, but it is a shame. I think that there are schemes out there, of course, which do help drivers along who have the talent but not necessarily have the budget. There are things that can help drivers get into motorsport, whether it's just they want to try and get all the way, or they just want to have a go and just want to have some fun racing. To be honest, back to the F1 silly season. I mean, the thing with the situation at Red Bull is that we have to remember is that for all this time that we've had drivers coming through the Red Bull Drive program, like Daniel Ricciardo, Jean-Eric Vergne, people like now Antonio Felix da Costa, and people like Daniel Kvyat as well, who races in GP3. The thing we have to remember is that the one person who's been effectively a logjam in the Red Bull Driver program is, to be fair, no disrespect to him, it's been Mark Webber, because he's been there since 2007. And of course, Sebastian Vettel's come to the Red Bull Driver program, and he obviously had his debut in 2007 at the wheel of a BMW Sauber at Indianapolis and scored points on his first race. Of course, then got picked up by Toro Rosso, and then scored himself fourth place that year in 2007 in China. Then took his first win a year later in Italy, and of course, they went to Red Bull, won races there, won more races in 2010. And of course now gone on to the superstar that we all know and, well, I say know and love, but I think in most cases it's know and boo on the podium. But yeah, obviously now that Webber's gone, that kind of opens the floodgates for the Red Bull Driver programs. Of course, now Ricciardo's gone through, and it does kind of leave Vergne now as a kind of I don't know, he's kind of a crossroads at the moment, because he's at Toro Rosso now, but where exactly does he go from this? I mean, of course he will do another season at Toro Rosso, I'm sure, at least. But really, he needs to use that season to really deliver the goods, because now that Ricciardo's gone, it's all hanging on him to really prove himself. I'm pretty sure that whatever happens, I think obviously they're going to have to fill the void in that one. I'm pretty sure that we're going to see someone like Antonio Felix da Costa take that second Toro Rosso seat, because of course he's done. I personally think he's one of those very up-and-coming drivers. I think he justifies the Red Bull Young Driver program, and of course he's been doing his thing in Formula Renault 3.5, which I think will definitely hopefully earn him a seat. I can't really see anyone at the moment, to be honest, who is part of the Red Bull Driver program at that level who could really go into that seat. And I really don't think Toro Rosso would look into anyone else outside the Young Driver program to try and push forwards anyway. I think that obviously we've had the whole rumours. I've heard some rumours recently today, the past couple of days, about Williams and such, and people they're going after. Of course, there's possibly the rumour that with Rob Smedley he's going to Williams, that Massa could follow him there, but would he want to go to Williams? Even though they're getting Mercedes engines next season, apparently there is I've heard a rumor apparently saying that there is like a Brazilian petrol or oil company that has said that if they get a Brazilian driver, obviously Massa is a prime example, is a prime candidate for that, then they will provide money for them, because of course they've got Maldonado, but of course Maldonado really hasn't. He had one flash in the pan, which was of course Spain last year. What else has he done since then? Nothing. So I think that Maldonado's time, personally, I think his time's probably up. They're not going to get rid of Bottas because they think of him very highly. Of course, they wouldn't have given him all those free practice times if they didn't. I've heard rumours such that maybe Sam Berg could be lined up, maybe even possibly. I've probably even heard it's a long shot. Maybe even James Hinchcliffe has been rumoured, because of course he's been let go. Yeah, exactly. And to be fair, Hinchcliffe is a good driver. It is a shame that he's been let go by Andretti Autosport. But there's been rumours that's been flying around.
Well, he did more, in that GoDaddy car than Danica Patrick could do in how many years?
Oh, yeah. Do you know what? Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, he's won more races than Danica Patrick did, because Danica won one race, or was it Motegi 2000, whichever year that was?
Yeah, I'm going to come in on that, but don't forget, that's when half of the IndyCar series was in Long Beach, and the other half was at Motegi, the last race of the before full unification, and Danica Patrick had no one to race with except for Elio Castroneves. He didn't know how to save fuel. But you're right, Hinch is fucking amazing in my opinion. I love Hinchcliffe to bits. But that's, again, the same thing. I mean, you know who I think right now Jean-Eric Vergne is? He's this decade's version of Scott Speed. Look at what happened to Scott Speed. He had an okay time in Formula 1. He didn't really get the support he needed, and this, of course, is before Toro Rosso really developed themselves as a team. Then he went to IndyCar, then he went to NASCAR. Now I don't know what the hell he's doing. He's been the unlucky one repeatedly. And, you know, there are a couple of drivers in Formula 1 who are like that. I think the rest is in that category. You know, in IndyCar, James Hinchcliffe could be in that category, who are struggling to move up the order. Where do they go?
It's an intriguing question, of course. The fact that they've got to wait for the likes of, you know, Jenson Button to go, and whenever he decides to go, Fernando Alonso, of course, and Kimi Räikkönen when they decide to retire, because of course, effectively they are the old. You have to admit they are the old hands of Formula One now. They've been around since 2000, 2001, so they've been around for over a decade. So, and I think typically an F1 driver's career really only lasts about a decade in some cases, because of course they come in, or 10 to 15 years depending on what age they come in. Of course, you've got people like Sergei Sorokin coming in apparently next year for Sauber, who's like 17 years old, this Russian kid. But to be fair, he has been doing pretty decent. To be fair, in World Series by Renault.
Do you remember when Kimi Räikkönen came in? Sorry to interrupt you. When Kimi Räikkönen came in, and they're like, oh, we can't give a super license to this kid. He's only 21 years old. And now look at it. 10 years later, we're looking at an 18-year-old. I tell you what, if he gets a podium at the US Grand Prix, he won't be allowed to touch the champagne.
Of course Kimi's gone to prove them all wrong, didn't he? Of course he came straight from Formula Renault, not even Formula 3 or Formula 3000 it was known then, or GP2, Formula 3000 it was known then. He came from Formula Renault all the way to Formula 1. But to be fair, it was a move justified. Peter Sauber had I think still has an eye for talent. Well, I guess in some ways it's questionable with Gutierrez, but anyway, I mean, to be fair with Gutierrez, he won the GP3 championship. He won racing GP2, and that's it. He really hasn't impressed at all. He hasn't impressed me at all in that seat.
I'm going to come in on that point, actually, and I think, this is Raikkonen syndrome striking once again. And, I think that there's talent. You can tell talent from a mile away. But at the same time, does that talent actually really transfer from GP3 to GP2 to Formula 1? Of course, you had it with Hamilton, you had it with Vettel, but I don't think that feeder system really applies much anymore.
If you look at the quality of the racing that you get in GP3 and GP2, I mean, you get some people in there who you look at and think, why are they even in a race car? I think there's quite a few people that I could possibly point out on that one. I think, in fact, one I'm going to point out is probably going to make everyone groan that's watching is Johnny Cicotto, because I'm not sure what he does on track. I don't know. Some of the things he's pulled off this year has been incredible, but not in a good way. It's been just, you just look at it and think, why, credit to him, he's made it to GP2, but of course, in some ways, he's another one of those racing drivers that's got there partially because he's got a famous father in terms of Johnny Cicotto Senior. Of course, he's been a race winner or a champion on two wheels, and also he's raced in Formula One. He's done many things like many tin tops and touring cars, many for BMW. Of course, now Johnny Cicotto Jr. has come in, and you see people like that, and also people like Carlos Sainz Jr. who's come through, and these other kind of drivers that come through that seem to get there partially because of their name. And it's kind of like, fair enough if they've got the talent to back it up, but people who, a prime case in point is, Nelson Piquet Jr., of course, a name doesn't make everything. The name doesn't mean you're going to be absolutely fantastic. And you've got, all due respect, people like, Thomas Scheckter and Leo and Greg Mansell. And
don't talk about Thomas Scheckter. I mean, he can't even come out turn number 4 at Indianapolis.
But that's exactly my point. These guys, in all fairness, yes, they can drive a race car, or sort of, in some cases, but mainly all they've got really going for them is their name. In fact, they only really got there partially because of their heritage, which their fathers have put through, so it managed to build up. So, but even if you look at it with Fittipaldi, Emerson Fittipaldi, you've got like Christian Fittipaldi, didn't really achieve much. He did race in F1, he raced in IndyCar, fair enough, but did never win a race in F1. Didn't even score any podiums, as far as I'm aware. And I think he might have won maybe 1 or 2 IndyCar races, But then you've got people like Pietro Fittipaldi who's coming through, who's apparently a very good talent. Of course, he's racing currently in Formula 4. So it's in some cases the name is justified, but I think in many cases it's been the case that it hasn't. So
I'm going to have to wrap you up very quickly, and I'm going to make one final
course.
point about a driver here, Stefan Wilson. If you guys ever get the chance to watch Stefan Wilson drive, I think he's the younger brother of Justin Wilson, who races, of course, in IndyCar. I believe he did do something in Formula 1, nothing notable, however. Stefan Wilson, an incredible talent. He's racing on the wrong side of the pond, but I think if he ever gets the chance, he could be in Formula 1. We're going to talk about WCS qualifying right now. And for the time being, it is changing every single second, and there's a couple of things that I need to tell you guys about. The first one, Hugo Luis has finally just moved up into second position. He struggled with his qualifying. Gregor Hutu has just got himself what will be pole position at 1 minute 28.799. Ilka Hapada, a stonking qualifying by him, 1 minute 29.112. Ahead of Hugo Luis. Ati Kirchhoff only fourth. And let's not forget, we're going to talk about this more in a moment. The big battle right now is between Hugo Luis and Ati Kirchhoff for second place in the championship. Fifth place, the number 67 machine of Alex Simpson, who, to be fair, he still has to race through the iRacing.com Pro Series of Road Racing. He has his pro license. He is ahead of Martin Kroenke, Jake Sturgis, Mo Garfilo, Matis Ego, Yuhu Abe, Andre Borcher, Stephen Michaels, Enzo Benito, Max Alorco. What a performance by Alex Simpson on that 67 car.
It's definitely up ahead against a variety of top names in the series, so that's definitely going to get him noticed with some of the top teams, whether or not it's a one-off performance or not. But looking, of course, at how the times go through, it's incredible time set by Gregor Hutu. Of course, he's now the champion, which he secured the title back in Interlagos. So effectively, he's got free reign to kind of race for himself now. He doesn't have to think about the championship. He can kind of say, I'm champion. I've scooped that $10,000 prize. See you later, boys. I'm just out here to have fun for the final two races. And effectively, he can release the shackles off that car number one car now, because of course he's had to, try and hold it for so long. But now he's kind of be able to just as I said, just let loose and have free reign on the last couple of races. And I think we'll be able to see a lot more kind of a more relaxed Gregor Hutu in this race, and just out there just to race for himself, I think, which is really good. But yeah, Alex Simpson, 67 car, definitely not a name that we expect or probably even know much about, of course, but hopefully if that's the kind of pace he's setting already at Suzuka here, that could be possibly an omen for races to come in future.
Yeah, the Apex Racing UK car, in fact, we're going to try and do a piece with them before the Pro Series of Road Racing start. They are hot contenders to get at least 2, if not 3 drivers into next year's World Championship Grand Prix Series. 67 car, provisionally qualified in the 5th position. We have got 2 sessions going on, so it's going to be kind of hard for us to judge who's doing what. The battle, as they say, though, really is between Hugo Luis and Ati Kirchhoff. Last time out at Brazil, lap number 2, Ati Kirchhoff was scored in the 2nd position. Hugo Luis, who we still believe was running a lot lighter fuel than Ati, he wouldn't tell us either way, was all over the rear of Ati Kirchhoff on lap 1, and then coming into turn number 4 on lap 2, Ati Kirchhoff got himself a little bit loose. By the way, Jake Sturgis just moved himself up into 4th position, now splitting Hugo and Ati, which actually might help Ati because he'll now be on the clean side of the grid. But Ati gets a little bit loose in turn 4. Hugo Luis, nowhere to go, runs into the rear of him. Championship over, come back in 2014. And for Hugo, I think for not only himself, but for Team MyFreeID Gaming, he's got to get that 2nd place. He can't afford to have Team Redline take 1 and 2 in the championship.
Well, Hugo's, of course, a former champion, of course, so he'll want to try and uphold that honour. Of course, he's already had to surrender the 2013 title to Gregor Hutu. So Hugo's now effectively, he's fighting for effectively the vice champion slot. So he's going to have to really push hard to try and make sure that happens. Of course, Ati Kirchhoff, of course, is a quicker racer, and he really has come on strong in the final half of the season, especially when he took his home win at Zandvoort. And then, of course, it was then the 2nd place at Interlagos. And obviously, that incident really wasn't Atse's fault. Atse, it wasn't done, obviously, on purpose, of course. He wasn't doing that just to try and take Hugo Luis out. He genuinely made a mistake. Hugo Luis had nowhere to go. And even, you heard it after the race, in the post-race interviews, Atse felt genuinely bad for it. He felt genuinely sorry for Hugo Luis because, effectively that incident ended Hugo Luis's championship. It wasn't intentional. It was a set of circumstances that seemed to come about, and
which then happened to Ben Cornette about 3 laps later, same corner.
There you go. So it wasn't the fact that that wasn't coincidence. It was just the nature of the circuit, because several corners caught out several drivers. So several corners on Interlagos caught out a lot of drivers on that day. So it wasn't the case that it was one incident and it was kind of doctored or made up, because it really wasn't. And then nothing of the sort happens in this kind of championship. This is the top line of sim racing, and if there's any suspicion of that happening, of course, then the powers that be clamp down on it very quickly and very hard. So I don't know. Hugo Luis Factory now knows what he has to do for the final couple of races. He needs to get himself as many points as he can. He needs to come away with. He needs to come away with 2 race victories to pretty much secure it. He needs to get himself, I think 2 race victories will be perfect for him. But the rate at the moment that today's going, Gregor Houti looks as though he's going to probably run away with it again, looking at the qualifying pace he's setting. And Ilka Happler getting himself in there as well could be a catalyst too, as could Jake Sturgis. And Alex Simpson, when that's qualifying pace in 6th position, ahead of likes of Cronke, Filo, Michaels, Enzo Benito, Yuho Abe, Andres Butcher, Delorcho, Jeremy Boutaloop, all those kind of guys. Alexia Loma, in fact, who hasn't even set a time either, or Fulvio Barazzini. So, that's qualifying pace, but, being quick over 1 lap is one thing. Being quick over 53 laps on the race distance is definitely another.
We're going to have to wrap it up. We will be back live in about 4 minutes' time for continued build-up of the 15th round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series from Suzuka Circuit. By the way, they are running at Suzuka today. It looks like Gregor Houti will have pole position. A lot to talk about. We're going to step aside. We'll be back in about 4 minutes' time. This has been a GlacierTV presentation of the F1/WCS Show Episode 3 thing. I wish it was presented by Starbucks. It's not. Starbucks, give me a call. We'll sort something out. We'll talk to you later. Bye!